Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the doors to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things nerdy more approachable and accessible for everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. Today I'm joined by Meghan Fitzmartin, who has written for DC Superhero Girls, Supernatural, recently wrote the Justice Society film, and what we'll be focusing on today is her most recent story, Some of Our Parts, which starred Robin in Batman Urban Legends. Meghan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm great. Before we start, I use he, him pronouns. Sorry, I forgot to announce that at the front.
That's fantastic. I use she, her pronouns.
Perfect. So, I'm super excited to chat. It's been kind of a big week for you, hasn't it?
I'm so tired. I'm so tired all the time.
I'm on that same wavelength.
Yeah.
So we're actually known as kind of hard-hitting journalists. So I always like to open up with kind of like one that always gets people stumped, and it's a hard one. So what's your favorite sandwich?
Asking the real serious questions, I see, the real intense ones. Well, it's dependent on where I get the sandwich from. But I'm a classic ham and cheese with some mustard, light lettuce, and pressed.
Oh, pressed.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone said it yet.
No one said pressed. Pressed is the way to go. I used to resist the like toasted phenom, but I'm here now, and it's great. Okay.
We honestly, I think the thing we get most is Reuben's, but a pressed sandwich. Okay.
Yeah, into it. I any type of pressed. I used to, as a kid, smush my bread anyway, so this was just the natural progression, I think.
You would just like take the sandwich and like smush it in your hands, or?
100%. I want to make that bread as flat as possible.
All right, sure. Yeah. No judgment. That's kind of awesome. All right, so before we get into the big part, how do you feel? What were you feeling while you waited for the public to kind of read this story?
I have known about this for a while, I think. I've known about it since I pitched the story and got it approved. And so I've always been, I think there has been a level of like excitement mixed with wanting to make sure that I did it justice. So like always this level of nervousness of being like, okay, like this is really important, at least to me. I hope everybody else finds it important, but like for me, it is important to get this right and to be true to Tim's character. And so just that heady mix of the in-between feelings. And then, the night before was a lot of like, oh, I don't know how they're going to take this, but I hope well.
So you pitched some, like, how much of this did you pitch?
About all of it. We, when my editor, Dave, and I were talking about doing a Tim story for Urban Legends, we were talking about identity, and we were talking about like what is next for Tim Drake and what does his life sort of look like. And I took the day to think about it. I took about 24 hours, and I finally emailed Dave and was like, look, man, I'm going in this direction with it. You have to stop me now if we can't go in this direction. So I I soft pitched it to him so that we could like do whatever types of approvals that we needed to do. But from the offset, I was like, well, if we're telling a story about the identity and we're telling a story about like Tim and who he is, this was the only thing I landed on as I was getting into Tim. And I try and always like live within that character and figure out what the character wants to say. And this was it. This was the message that Tim wanted to put out there. So
that's awesome. Like I've got a huge smile on your face. You can't see it, but that Dave guy, great.
Yeah, big fan. Yeah, he's all right.
We are big fans of him. So now, did you know about all of this when you were writing Future State? Robin?
No, I didn't. In fact, I had sort of an inkling, but like what future state was sort of supposed to be its own, like what the future could be based off of the information that we had and what was already canon. And as we hadn't had the conversation about doing some of our parts yet, it was in the back of my mind when writing it, but it wasn't necessarily the like guiding post. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a huge, like, this is probably one of the biggest bad stories in a very long time. In your opinion, why do you think it was important for Tim to come out in publicly to fans and for the Batman franchise as a whole?
I think every person has their own time, and it's sort of semi-mysterious on how it works. It just depends on comfortability level. And for Tim, this was the time for him. It was comfortable for him now. This was the story, like I said, that he wanted to tell. That, you know, I in looking through and reading through all of the other comics that I have, both of you know, Just Tim Drake and Young Justice and Detective Comics that he's been in, and it felt like it was leading up to this. It felt like this was the missing piece of the story of Tim, and the piece that could put everything else in context.
And so all throughout the story, people are kind of accusing him of not taking the time to slow down and analyze himself. As the writer, how much do you think Tim had a fear of introspection? Oh,
deeply. I think that he's absolutely afraid of introspection. He jumped on being the new Robin without really thinking if that's what he wanted. He's done a lot of jumping to solve problems for everyone else around him, but has never really taken the time for himself. He's always been sort of like, what does everybody else need? Great, perfect, I will do that.
Do you think that fear is what has driven him to do as much as he has in his time as Robin?
I don't think it's a fear so much as it's just a driving factor. It's a driving factor that he's had ever since, you know, he was a kid. And I think that driving factor, I think that's the reason you tell the story of, well, Tim, what do you want? Because he doesn't know. He's never really had the time. He was a kid who was sort of forced into a large level of responsibility. And this happens a lot. Like, this happens a lot whenever you exist in a state where you have to sort of help out in a way that may be more than what you as a child can do. There gets to be a point where you sort of have to stop and slow down and be like, I don't know if I've done all of this for me or for others. And I think that in the state of telling Tim's story, this was time for him to finally be like, nah, all right, hold on.
He's kind of at that point where he's ready to kind of look inside.
Exactly.
Now, throughout the story, there's a couple times where Tim uses technology metaphors in reference to himself. With the story dealing with Tim trying to find the courage to look into himself, do you find that this is a helpful lens for him to look through just because he's a super smart character and he's very good with like technology? Do you think that has been a way of him being able to take a time and look at himself?
I think so. I think it gives him the language that I don't think he always has. And I think that, like, since he's been getting into technology, since he's become like a techno whiz, essentially, that I think gives him the language and the metaphor to understand himself and go deeper within the program so that he can find those pieces that are missing.
So in Urban Legend 6, there's a line where he says, "People keep asking me what I want, but I couldn't grasp it. Whatever it was, it always felt out of reach until right now." So it kind of gives a sensation that he finally figured this, like something clicked.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what do you think happened in his mind to set this off?
I think, so what happens right before that is Bernard essentially saying, I wish we could finish our date. And for Tim, I think it was the permission I think it was the permission that he needed to unlock that piece of himself. Like it was the missing link. It was the missing conversation piece. It was the missing algorithm to the program that he was running, where it was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like I have been given this permission to feel this way or think this way. And that, I think, is the permission that he needed to unlock that piece of himself.
And Tim's has always had a place in the Bat family. Do you think there was any fear of what they would think of this in his mind?
I don't think that he realized he was there in his mind. Like, I don't think that he had this recognition. I think that, I think Tim has sort of existed in this space of like, I have these very strong feelings. Oh, well, that's probably just how normal it is. Yeah. And like I said, I think Bernard saying like, I wish we could have finished our date. Him being like, oh, I can't have the permission to do this. And I do think this way. So I don't think that it has necessarily anything to do with the Bat family as much as it was just him sort of blocking himself because he didn't give himself the space to feel this way.
That he did. It's kind of like he didn't even realize it. Right?
Yeah.
That makes some other things click into place. Now, Tim has had a lot of different relationships with many male characters, some superheroes and some from the Brentwood Academy. What is the appeal that Bernard had that made you choose him for the story in particular?
Bernard, I chose for this particular story because it represented a specific time in Tim's life that was in upheaval. I mean, Gotham's always in upheaval, right? Like that's never like not the case. But for me, there was this. It was a formidable time, or formative. Landed on it.
That's a good one.
It was a formative time, I think, for both Tim as a character and also comic book readers. Both of those pieces sort of slotting into place of, oh, okay, this is a character that is not as well known, but well known enough to be a part of Tim's life, and was super close to Tim, and was a huge part of his life, and did represent sort of his civilian life and the life that he had outside of this and outside of Robin. And so it was interesting to me to bring that element back, because it's been a while since we sort of visited that element of Tim's life.
Yeah, it is nice to see more of who Tim is, other than Robin, and that's a huge portion of this story. Now, the thing we were talking about where Tim kind of didn't realize this about himself, when searching for Bernard, Tim notes that the Dowds, Bernard's parents, never liked him. Was this an intentional hint that they may not be accepting of who Bernard is?
Yes. That was the intention, is to hint that parents were not necessarily as welcoming towards Bernard.
So before we do, I get to ask a couple of questions about the mantle of Robin and Tim. I did want to ask about the Chaos Monster.
Yes.
Now, what was the inspiration behind that and the cult?
The inspiration behind the Chaos Monster, the name specifically, it was not supposed to be the original name, and then my editor just very much liked the name, so we kept it. But whenever I was pitching a monster that Tim had to face, I was like, I don't know, something that would be literally terrifying to Tim, like actual chaos, like a chaos monster. Because Tim is very good about keeping order in his world, and you know, everything in its place and everything is understood. Like, once again, the computer metaphor is really, I think, apt for him. And the Chaos Monsters are not that. The Chaos Monsters are meant to be a version that intentionally throws Robin off of his game, because there is no rhyme or rhythm. There is no set understanding of how they work, because there's many of them. There's a bunch of them, and they get to work however they want to work. And utilizing the pain cult was sort of like was the idea to put Tim through, like, the idea that through pain we understand ourselves better. And I think that, like, that was a piece that was the sum of Tim's parts, is to go through sort of the pain that he inflicts on himself every day. Like, wearing the Robin mantle is a choice that he has made, and it is it's hard. It's a hard life that he leads, and there is a level of pain within that I think speaks to him understanding himself and where he fits into things. And so I think that, like, the idea was always to utilize these pieces of inspiration that make up Tim's character into creating this particular type of villain that would essentially get him to understand himself better.
Wow. Sometimes it's hard to do these interviews because I'm, like, sitting here like, wow, that's brilliant. So it's, I gotta tell you,
nice of you.
I love these. I've been so excited to talk about this.
Yay!
And
glad.
So there's something that I focused on in, I think it's the first part of the story, where Tim shows up to this date, doesn't know it's a date, and he comments that the clothes in the cave, that they need to update the clothes that they keep in the micro caves around Gotham, because that's something totally normal families do. He says that it feels like it's Dick's clothes. Now, was this just a bit, or was this more of Tim literally wearing someone else's clothes in retrospective to the mantle of Robin?
I don't necessarily think it is to the mantle of Robin. I think it's, wearing somebody else's skin. It's being in somebody else's clothes. It is putting yourself in a position that, like, it doesn't fit. Like, it doesn't fit who you are, but you don't understand why. And that, to me, was a huge part of what Tim was going into, was this, like, I think I'm going into this situation and I don't necessarily understand why I am uncomfortable, because he is putting on a piece of himself that doesn't fit. So there's that level to it. The other level to it is just that, like, I love, Dick is his older brother, and I love the idea of him putting on clothes of Dick Grayson and being like, this doesn't work.
And
it's a twofer for me.
Good. We do see him struggling a lot with his identity and who he is throughout the story, and many people have brought this up just across the board in many issues, that Tim has had a lot of different names: Robin, Red Robin, Drake, Savior. For you, which codename do you think suits him best, and why?
I think, for me, the code name that eventually will suit him best is Batman.
Yeah.
But we're nowhere near that. And I think that, to me, that is what he wants. And I think that he feels that he needs to go through the process to get it. Which is why, to me, this wasn't a story about getting a new code name, because he knows how to be Robin. He is content with Robin for now, because I think that ultimately ultimately, who knows what will happen. But in this moment, being Robin is enough to train himself to continue to one day maybe be Batman.
You think that's still his own trajectory, is that he wants to be Batman?
I don't know. I think right now, but that's what's so great about comics, is comics are malleable, and the characters move and change and grow, and they are ongoing, and that's something that's very special to me. And so who knows if that will eventually be Tim's trajectory. But I think that's what he wants. I think that's right now, that's what he wants.
And I can't ask you the question about Connor. I won't put you through that.
Oh, bless you. Thank God.
I honestly, it's not worth it.
I've seen Twitter. I understand what the question is.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, though. You did write Justice Society.
I did, yes.
The characters that are in that.
Or I co-wrote it. I co-wrote it with Jeremy Adams, who is writing Flash right now, actually.
Wow. So for you, who is the most interesting character from the Justice Society? even if they weren't in the film, just because we are fans of the JSA. I just want to know who you like.
Yeah. Oh man, it's like trying to pick my favorite kid. They all are so interesting to me in so many different ways, and there's so many of them that we didn't get to use in the movie that I was bummed out about. But there also were a million characters in the movie, so I was like, well, we have to make our choices. I would have loved to have had Wildcat because I love Wildcat, but I also love Black Canary. I loved how we used Dinah. And it would have unfortunately been sort of like the same note twice if we had Wildcat. Mm-hmm. So we ended up not using Wildcat, but there was conversation about it. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many Justice Society folks that I would have loved to have used, but I'm grateful with what we were able to do and how it turned out.
You know, now that you've said that, it's never clicked, but like having Black Canary and Wildcat together does kind of like the same thing. Huh.
Yeah. It's stronger unless they are fighting within each other. The beat is stronger if it is one or the other.
Interesting. So, you are coming back to write some more Tim. Is that correct?
Yes. Urban Legends 10. There will be some Tim.
Fantastic. So, I did have to ask you our other big heavy hitter question to close. I hope you're ready for this one.
Okay.
If you had a Rube Goldberg machine, what would it do?
Oh, man. Honestly, what it probably would do is water my plants, because I have like 20 plants. And it's a lot of plants to remember to water. And I'm the most, what's the word? I'm the most like, stereotypical, like, no, that's not the word that I mean either, but there's no nuance in me. Like if I haven't like fed myself or if I haven't like had any water today, my plants have also not had any water. Like I've sat with that and I understand it. And as a writer, I know how terrible that is. Like use a different, like it's so tropey, use a different trope. I get that. But like, also at the same time, if I'm not fed, my plants are not fed, and I need to like get better about that. So my Rube Goldberg machine would figure out a way to feed both my plants and probably myself. And
you know what? I did have a follow-up question. This one is personally just for me. What's your favorite kind of pie?
Oh man, I love pie so much. All pie, except I don't like cherry, and I don't like the British have fish pie, and I refuse. Absolutely not. Get out of here.
Wait, pause for a second. That is disgusting, first off.
It is gross. It is absolutely gross.
Is it like blended or like...
I don't think so. There's a picture. I found out about it because a friend of mine sent me a picture with just like a fish sticking out of a pie. And I was like, that can't be real. And they're like, what are you talking about? This is fish pie. And I was like, why are you talking about it like it's a normal thing that people have? And he's like, because it is. I'm like, okay, well...
Sounds like a good time to block their number.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have any other projects coming up that you wanted to plug, just so people know about where to find you?
I nothing that I can talk about except Urban Legends 10. Everybody buy that. Everybody buy all of the Urban Legends. I think that they're all great. It's been an honor to write and have my name next to like amazing writers that I am obsessed with. So
the whole line has been like unbelievable.
Like outstandingly good. I'm not just saying it because like I wrote a thing, but like I legit cried over the Jason story. Like how could you not? Like it's just so beautiful. So it's been an honor to like have my story in there as well. But if anybody wants to find me, I'm on Twitter and literally any form of social media at MegFitz89. That's where I'm at all the time.
It's good to be consistent.
It makes things easier.
You can find us at gatecrashers.fan or on Twitter at gatecrasherspod or on Instagram at the same thing. And now we have TikTok.
What?
Yeah. Sorry.
Amazing.
If you heard that, that was Dinah, the dog, barking in the background. So,
Dinah.
Catch us next week. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.